now listening to the Arsenal Therapy Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the 15-Minute Show. I'm Adam Keys and today we're going to be talking about Mikel Merino. The links to Arsenal are intensifying for the Real Sociedad man. He's just won Euro 2024, but what do we know about Mikel Merino? What would he offer Arsenal? Why does Mikel Arteta want him? Let's get into it. Let's have a look at what the numbers say, what the positioning says, what he's shown for Real Sociedad over the last 6 seasons, what he's done since he left Newcastle. Remember, this is a guy that has played in the Premier League before and did reasonably well. I watched him at St James's Park on numerous occasions, so I have got a pretty vivid memory of what he was like in a Newcastle shirt, and I think he would be someone that would be an interesting fit for Arsenal. So let's get into it and have a look at why Mikel Arteta wants him and what he would bring to the Arsenal team. So first up, he's a player that plays a lot of games. That's something that the first thing that jumps out about Merino. 32 games last season, 5 goals, 3 assists, 10 yellow cards. The yellow cards, that is something that we are going to be discussing. He summoned 54 games last season, 3,864 minutes. That's a lot of football. That shows someone that's robust, is physically strong enough to last a season, and can play a lot of football. But it also points to someone that at 28 years old is going to want to continue playing a lot of football. This is his big contract. This is his big move. He's got a year left on his deal at Real Sociedad, and he is reportedly around 60,000 euros per week, which is around kind of 48,000 pounds per week. He is going to be making a big jump salary-wise wherever he goes. Arsenal are interested, Chelsea are interested, Barcelona, and it appears he has said no to Atletico Madrid. But it's clear he will get a pay rise with his next move, and he will be very selective where he goes, because this is probably the most important move he will make in his career. The move to Real Sociedad has proved a very successful one. He's played for a team that has finished in the top 6 the last 4 years. They finished in the Champions League places in the 22-23 season. And he's been a key cog in the Sociedad machine alongside Martin Zubimendi, another player that we know Mikel Arteta likes. But what are his real strengths and weaknesses? So interestingly, who scored less goals is one of them. Progressive passes, take-ons, tackles, clearances, aerial duels. His weaknesses being interceptions and pass completion. Again, we are going to get into that. The goals one is interesting because he has just had his best ever goal scoring season and he hasn't hit those numbers previously. But the big one for Mikel Arteta is duels. When he loses a duel, he gets angry. And Mikel Merino was the top duel winner in Europe's top 7 leagues last season with 326 duels. So he won 29 more duels than Mohamed Kudus in second place, which is a pretty insane statistic. This is a guy that is both an aerial and ground duel winning machine. He can allow his teams to play high up the park because of his ability to continuously win back the ball, win aerial duels, win ground duels, you name it. This guy is a monster. He attacks the ball aggressively and he's got a big 6'2" frame, plenty of power behind him, and he times his duels well. He's got the physical capacity to compete as well. And this is the instant stand-up of why Mikel Arteta initially probably likes him, but we'll get into some other reasons why. So with those duels, it isn't just him knocking the ball down to teammates. It isn't just going in and winning the ball in the air from goal kicks and so on. This is a guy that wins a lot of attacking aerial duels inside the box. And we can see from these 3 graphics, these are 3 goals he's scored. You can see the position he's attacking. Edge of the 6, an incredibly dangerous area, and he can find space in these. He's an unbelievable player in the air. And he would give Arsenal a real attacking threat with the likes of Saka, Martinelli, Martin Ødegaard. He can drift into the box, find space very well, and attack the ball aggressively. And that's something, whilst Arsenal have got duel winners, aside from Gabriel, Arsenal don't have many players that are very aggressively attacking the ball in the air. Kai Havertz is very good in the air, but he's not the most aggressive attacker of a football when the ball's coming in. Merino's the opposite. He really goes for that ball. He goes in with power, with brute force, and he can get something behind the ball. So in that sense, the obvious goal scoring threat is there from the air. But I would reiterate that he has just had his best goal scoring season. He scored, I think, 27 goals in Sociedad colours over a 6-year period, averaging around 1 goal every 10 games. So you're not talking about a huge goal scoring threat, but someone that does add an additional layer of threat to an already very strong attack. But just looking at his numbers versus other midfielders, interestingly, he ranks in the 94th percentile for non-penalty goals. This is being compared to pure midfielders, I will add. So you're not talking about really out-and-out attacking midfielders who are attacking the box on a regular basis. But you look at some of his other numbers, his total number of shots, his assists, 64, 65th percentile, not the highest. Shot creating actions, again, 56. Expected assists, 47th percentile. So these aren't the highest creative figures. However, some of the things that do stand out are successful take-ons, touches in the attack and penalty area, 93rd percentile, progressive passes, 76. And then when you go into his defensive numbers, kind of aerial duels, clearances, tackles, very, very high. But you will notice a few red things. Pass completion, 18th percentile of 76.5%, very low for a midfielder. Interceptions, 16 percentile with 0.58 per game. Those numbers are very, very low. And again, you go into it and you look at his numbers here. You look at the graph, ball recovery, extremely high. Everything else suggests, if we're being brutally honest, pretty average numbers. Nothing jumps off the page here. Nothing is massively concerning. Nothing really stands out either. But when it comes to his passing, where the numbers perhaps aren't fully telling the whole story is when you look at some of the passes that Mikel Merino plays. Interestingly, it's how he sets himself up to play these passes. He's very good at taking the ball in the half turn, getting it, moving it out of his feet very, very quickly and releasing. With that, he's also gives himself the opportunity to drive, because he can give himself that yard of space. He can release quickly or he can drive. He can move into space. First one, in this instance, he got it. One touch, straight in. You can see the fullback attacking the ball. Whenever he got that ball, the fullback wasn't in the picture. He knew exactly where he was playing it. Top right was an example. Half turn, drive into space, whip that ball out to the right. The third graphic is something where Arsenal don't overly thrive without Thomas Partey in the team. He gets it in the half turn and literally breaks the lines. Straight pass, in goal. And the final one is something that Mikel Merino is famed for. It's that clipped pass, something Jorginho is very good at. And he gets the ball up over the top on his left foot onto an on-running striker. And this is a real threat because he can play the ball from quite a variety of positions and really open up the creativity in his team. And when you combine that with someone that's very, very good defensively, these are incredibly rare traits to find. A creative midfielder who's also a duel winner and an aggressive tackler. But again, whenever you come back to the numbers, looking at it, there are things that do stand out. Progressive carries, because he does have the ability to drive forward, as I said, and I've just shown you a picture of some examples of that. But his pass completion being low and expected assists, they are things that we do have to keep coming back to because they are not jumping off the page for a creative midfielder. And when you look at it compared to Declan Rice is in blue here, Mikel Merino in red. What does interest me, though, is that the two of them have slightly different strengths. So with Merino, higher non-penalty goals threat than Declan Rice, higher number of clearances, and higher number of progressive passes than Declan Rice. This is something that Declan's been criticised a bit for recently. Higher number of successful take-ons, and a higher percentage of aerial duels won. These are small things that can really add to the Arsenal team because they're slightly different things than what we've got right now. And interestingly, where Declan Rice really thrives is progressive carries, pass completion, passes attempted, he is attempting a lot more passes than Mikel Merino. And a lot of that was down to when he was playing in the 6 for Arsenal, he was hitting up to 100 passes per game, whereas Merino's playing a lot more as an 8 than he is as a 6, where he hasn't played for a few years. And on that, when you look at their heat maps, so on the left, you've got Mikel Merino. On the right, you've got Declan Rice. Mikel Merino is very left-sided dominant, and this is something that people would often associate with Declan Rice, is him being more left-sided than right. But you can see from Declan's heat map last season, these are just league games, by the way, he covered a huge amount of ground. He was covering the whole pitch quite often for Arsenal, whereas Merino is very much geared towards that left 8 position. You look at the heaviest concentration of his actions, they're coming in that left half space out towards the left wing. Now, who does that remind you of? Granit Xhaka at Arsenal 22-23. Granit Xhaka played a lot of his football in that side of the pitch. When Arsenal were really balanced and Arsenal were scoring a lot of goals from the left side, Granit Xhaka was occupying that role. And the truth is, he wasn't the most natural left 8. He was a 6 that had been turned into an 8 because of some agility and mobility problems in the Premier League as a 6. But as an 8, Granit Xhaka really thrived because he was able to progress the ball very well. And Martinelli really stood up and was able to score goals as a result of that. Mikel Merino gives you some similar traits to Granit Xhaka. But in the way that Granit Xhaka was more of a natural 6 playing as an 8, Mikel Merino is more of a natural 8 who can play as a 6 if required. And I would say if required because he hasn't played there for a few years. With Merino, he's very good at progressing the ball and breaking the lines, turning, releasing it quickly and sending players in behind. This is something that would hugely benefit Gabriel Martinelli because we know he likes to run in behind. We know he likes to get wide, really go down the sides. And with a player with the aerial strength and the ability to win flick-ons coming into that area, plus a passer that can set him free, Martinelli's got a real threat that he can be played in behind with. But what's interesting is when you look at the comparison with Declan Rice, towards the end of the season, Declan Rice played as a left 8, not as a 6. We are hearing a lot of talks that Arsenal see Rice more as an 8. So what's interesting about this is where will Mikel Merino play? Because as I mentioned, he hasn't played as a 6 for a while. A move like this would suggest that both Thomas Partey and Jorginho are going to stay and share the minutes at 6, along with Declan Rice. And then Mikel Merino and Declan Rice would share that 8 role because you're not bringing in a player like Mikel Merino to play as a 6 behind Declan Rice because he hasn't played there. But then there's the other option. Could Mikel Arteta be looking at a double pivot with Mikel Merino and Declan Rice? Because the two of them are more traditional centre midfielders. They're both duel winners. They're both good passers. They can both carry. They are more all-action midfielders as opposed to real specific players. And whilst Merino does like to operate on that left side, there is the option to use these two as a pivot, which is something we haven't always seen. But then you look at Calafiori is a player that also likes to step into that zone. So this signing does open up possibilities for Arsenal, and it's very much a market opportunity, which we're hearing will cost around 25 million, which is possibly why there is such a clamour to get a player at 28 years old who maybe doesn't fit exactly with the squad needs right now, because again, it comes back to where Declan Rice is going to play. But what he does give you is quality, and what you see is what you get from Mikel Merino. He's not someone that's going to get better. He's not someone that's going to get any worse for a couple of years. You're probably getting maybe 3, maximum 4 years out of him at his absolute peak. And then potentially he leaves for free or he goes on a cut price deal. That is what you get when you buy a 28-year-old. But what is interesting about Mikel Merino is his disciplinary record. When you look at it, he committed almost double the number of fouls Declan Rice did last year. He got double the number of yellow cards. Discipline is a problem for him. He does commit a lot of fouls, and he is a player that goes in for a lot of duels. He wins a lot of duels, but that means he's competing for a lot of duels, and he is committing fouls off the back of quite a few of them. So that's something that needs to be kept in mind. You are talking about a player that can rack up the bookings quite quickly. And if he got 10 yellow cards in the Premier League, depending on the timing of them, that means missing up to 3 games through suspension. 1 for the first yellow, 2 for the next 5. So, again, discipline is something that you have to bear in mind. This player isn't without faults, but his progressive passing, his ability to take on the half turn and break the lines, these are things that Arsenal don't really have. And as I keep coming back to, the duel winning is incredibly important to Mikel Arteta. What's also important is goals and efficiency in the box. He has mentioned efficiency in the box on numerous occasions, and it was one of the things he mentioned in his interview in Marbella. So you look at Merino's shot map. This is from La Liga last season. He took 30 shots and he scored 5. It scored 5 off an XG of 3.29. He's hit 1 shot with his scored 1 with his right, 2 with his left, and 2 headers. But when you look at where the goals have come, they're all inside the box. But he is hitting shots from outside the box. So he's a player that on occasion has scored goals from the edge and the outside of the box. Not last season, but on seasons gone by. So that does give Arsenal a slightly different threat. And that ability to add more goals from midfield is something that is only going to be an added advantage to Arsenal. But that isn't the key reason you would sign Mikel Merino. The key reason is his passing and his ability to link up with the players that we've already got. And one of those is Martin Ødegaard. We know that Martin Ødegaard and Mikel Merino played together at Real Sociedad for a season. Martin Ødegaard won Young Player of the Year that season. Earned a move back to Real Madrid. They thought they were going to keep him, and then he came to Arsenal on loan. It didn't work out. And he hasn't looked back since. Coming to Arsenal was the best thing that has happened, Martin Ødegaard. But what's interesting here is the two of them linked up very well together during that season. And Ødegaard was nowhere near the player he is now, although he had a very, very good season. He'd be coming into an Arsenal team as a much better player than he was during their time together at Sociedad, with Ødegaard a much better player, Declan Rice in the team, who is a much better or cleaner winner of the ball than him, but also he's a monster duel winner. With this, you've got an Arsenal midfield with 2 6-foot+ players. You've got an Arsenal back 4 if Calafiori, Gabriel Saliba and White start, for example, all over 6 foot, plus Havertz 6'4" up front. That's a lot of height in this Arsenal team, and that's exciting because no one is going to bully this team. And with Merino's ability to hold players off and release the ball quickly, you're able to utilize Martinelli's pace. This feels like a solution to help fix the left-hand side progression issues that we saw last season. Our right-hand side is so fluid. Our left-hand side didn't work last season. And people will point to Trossard scoring a lot of goals. You have to look at where Trossard's key actions came from for Arsenal last season. A lot of them came as a poacher and an instinctive finisher from within the box. That's something that can't be overlooked. They weren't coming on the left wing. Trossard barely got any assists last season. I think it was 1 or 2. His actions came in front of goal, inside the box, attacking the penalty spot, and a lot of instinctive finishes. He had a superb season, but he didn't do a huge amount starting left and getting the ball in the box there. With Merino, Martinelli would have a partner that can really create down that left-hand side, and that's something that we haven't had in the past since Granit Xhaka left. So ultimately, would Merino be a good signing for Arsenal? Look, I'm not going to sit here and say that Mikel Merino is a superstar. He's not. He's a very, very good player. He's wanted by some of Europe's top clubs for a reason. It looks like he's turned down Atletico. Barcelona are still keen. Chelsea are in the mix. But Arsenal seem to be the one that are really making waves to sign this guy. For me, I think it would be a very smart move. I think he's a better 8 than Granit Xhaka was. I don't think he's a better player than Granit Xhaka is. And I think he fits what Mikel Arteta is looking for. But one of the reasons that I see this as a very good transfer for Arsenal is because Arsenal have Lewis Skelly and Ethan Nwaneri coming through the academy. Buying a 28-year-old gives them a pathway to first-team football. Both of them are... Lewis Skelly's more of a 6. Ethan Nwaneri's more of an 8. But if Arsenal went out and say spent £100 million on Bruno Guimaraes, who's 26, what does that say to those two? They are entering into a point of their career where they need minutes. They need to play and they need to develop. If they get those minutes this season, they could be starters in a few years. It may not work out, but they could be super talents for Arsenal. And that's something that needs to be kept in mind. Mikel Merino solves a problem now for the next 2 to 3 years, whilst also giving a pathway and a progression opportunity for two very, very highly rated heel end kids. And that is something that we have to consider. It's not just the now, it's can we solve a problem now whilst also providing a long-term solution? And Merino will never be the long-term solution, but his involvement in the team could create a pathway for two younger players. And that is just speculation. It may not happen. This deal may not happen. But ultimately, I think if it does, it's a very good deal for Arsenal. At around 25 million, you add that to the 40 that we're going to pay for Calafiori. And Arsenal have started the window off very, very well. That should mean that we have money to go and add a couple of real quality players alongside these two. If this is a deal where Merino becomes our kind of one of our biggest signings in the summer, then no, it's not the best deal for Arsenal. We have to look at real quality level raisers, and Calafiori and Merino feel like two very good fixes for us right now, but we still need that level raiser beyond those two. So I think this is a case of watch this space. It's going to be a very interesting summer. We're going to see market opportunities arise for attacking players. There's still the possibility of Nico Williams. Who knows what will happen there? Eze has been linked in the past. Many players have been linked to Arsenal, but we're not hearing much in terms of concrete news. So it's very much watch this space. Let's see what happens. And hopefully we get a couple of deals done very soon. And we put ourselves into a position where come the last month of the window, we are able to go out and spend over 100 million and we get the sales done at this time. So it's unlikely we'll see a superstar come in, but with Merino and Calafiori, you would hope that leaves 120 plus left in the budget for the season ahead. But look, thank you for joining. If you've enjoyed this video, please drop a like. Please give us a comment. Tell us what you think of Mikel Merino. Do you think he's going to be a good player for us? And please subscribe to the channel. We will be back with a lot more videos over the summer. And you can find us in the main pod where we do a lot more detailed analysis of games. Thank you and have a great day.